Hello and welcome to this exploring session, finishing off this week with the end of the Spanish tragedy by Thomas Kyd. The story so far. Watch the previous 4 episodes of these that we've been doing. Seriously, there's no point in me explaining the plot now. It's too complicated. Hieronimo's sons be murdered. He's all revengey. Spain and Portugal are having some fighty stuff, but they're making it all up, and there's going to be, I'm sure, a happy ending. It'll be fine. I'm not going to go into details on that. I'm going to plough straight on. We are at the end of Act 3, just to confuse everyone, of course, that there is no Act 5. Act 3 will move straight on into Act 4, and then the play will end. Anyone following along at home, just remember that we are not doing the additions. So there may be some bits which you will suddenly go, oh, hang on, shouldn't they be saying something else? Well, they're not. We're going with the earlier edition, 1592, off the top of my head. So without further ado, as we go into the home straight, I'll introduce you to the team who's going to be reading the text this afternoon. And so, reading the Viceroy and Andrea is...
Hi, I'm Alan Scott. I'm not a professional actor, but I do enjoy reading odd material like this.
Odd material, how dare you, sir. And reading Don Pedro and Balthazar is...
Hello, I'm Sarah. I'm an actor, writer and director based in Germany.
And reading Lorenzo and Revenge is...
Hello, I'm William Sutton and I'm an actor based in Amsterdam.
And reading the person who's going to go mad all over again, just like we did last summer, playing Hieronimo is...
Liz, and I'm joining you from North Devon.
And reading Castile and Isabella is...
Hello, I'm Helen Good. I am a historian working on Star Chamber, but I'm currently in Yorkshire.
And reading Belimperia for this session is...
Hi, I'm Pamela. I'm an Irish actor based in London.
And reading The King of Spain is...
Hi, I'm Greg, and I'm not dying. Oh, yes, I am.
Oh, spoiler alert there. Spoiler alert. And I am your host, Robert Crighton. I'll be reading stage directions and an incredibly demanding part of A Random Servant later on. So we are going from Act 3, Scene 14. There's a lot of scenes in Act 3 because it's sort of Act 3 and 4 squunched together. We're definitely into what would probably originally have been Act 4, but hey, the meaning of acts in play structuring is all a bit of a lie anyway. So, enter, without further ado, the King of Spain, the Duke of Castile, Viceroy, Lorenzo, Balthazar, Don Pedro, and Belimperia.
Go, brother. 'Tis the Duke of Castile's cause. Salute the Viceroy in our name.
I go.
Go forth, Don Pedro, for thy nephew's sake, and greet the Duke of Castile.
It shall be so.
And now to meet these Portuguese, for as we now are, sometimes were these, kings and commanders of the Western Indies. Welcome, brave Viceroy, to the court of Spain, and welcome all his honourable train. 'Tis not unknown to us for why you come, or have so kingly crossed the seas. Suffice if it in this we note the troth, and more than common love you lend to us. So is it that mine honourable niece, for it beseems us now that it be known, already is betrothed to Balthazar, and by appointment and our condescent tomorrow are they to be married. To this intent we entertain thyself, thy followers, their pleasure and our peace. Speak, men of Portugal, shall it be so? If I say so, if not, say flatly no.
Renowned King, I come not, as thou thinkest, with doubtful follows, unresolved men, but such as have upon thine articles confirmed thy motion and contented me. No, sovereign, I come to solemnize the marriage of thy beloved niece, fair Belimperia, with my Balthazar. With thee, my son, who sith I live to see, here, take my crown, I give it her and thee, and let me live a solitary life, in ceaseless prayers, to think how strangely heaven hath thee preserved.
See, brother, see how nature strives in him. Come, worthy Viceroy, and accompany thy friend with thine extremities. A place more private fits this princely mood.
Or here, or where your highness thinks it good.
And we're going to pause there as everyone exits except for Castile and Lorenzo. I'm pausing this quickly because I think it's worth pointing out that this is a very public set of speeches. This is a very demonstrative theatre of the king, formally asking the Portuguese about, is this marriage a good plan? And Belimperia is on stage and says nothing. And for those who might have forgotten where we were when we left the play, Belimperia has not got much agency at the moment. This match is not really going through with her consent, and certainly there's an awful lot going on here. So just thought I'd point that out. Any thoughts from the room before we move forward?
One interesting one. I'm not quite sure why they've crossed the seas to get from Portugal to Spain.
I did think that
Navigation error?
Early modern geography.
I was thinking that.
It's not uncommon to use the sea as the swiftest way of getting from one place to another, or rivers, etc., rather than by land. So it's not completely nonsense, but it does seem a bit odd, doesn't it? Okay, we will, however, move on. I just wanted to mark that point. So, after the official pomp and ceremony has occurred, exeunt everybody, but we are left with Castile and Lorenzo.
Nay, stay, Lorenzo. Let me talk with you. Seest thou this entertainment of these kings?
I do, my lord, and joy to see the same.
And knowst thou why this meeting is?
For her, my lord, whom Balthazar doth love, and to confirm their promised marriage.
She's thy sister.
Who, Belimperia? Aye, my gracious lord, and this is the day that I have longed so happily to see.
Thou wouldst be loath that any fault of thine should intercept her happiness.
Heavens will not let Lorenzo err so much.
Why then, Lorenzo, listen to my words. It is suspected and reported too that thou, Lorenzo, wrongst Hieronimo, and in his suits towards his majesty thou keepst him back and seekst to cross his suit.
That I, my lord?
I tell thee, son, myself have heard it said, when, to my sorrow, I have been ashamed to answer for thee, though thou art my son. Lorenzo, knowst thou not the common love and kindness that Hieronimo hath won by his deserts within the court of Spain? Or seest thou not the king, my brother's care in his behalf to procure his health? Lorenzo, shouldst thou thwart his passions, and he exclaim against thee to the king, what honour wert in this assembly, or what a scandal wert amongst the kings, to hear Hieronimo exclaim on thee? Tell me, and look thou tell me truly too, whence grows the ground of this report in court?
My lord, it lies not in Lorenzo's power to stop the vulgar, liberal of their tongues. A small advantage makes a water breach, and no man lives that long contenteth all.
Myself have seen thee busy to keep back him and his supplications from the king.
Yourself, my lord, hath seen his passions, that ill beseemed the presence of a king. And for I pitied him in his distress, I held him thence with kind and courteous words, as free from malice to Hieronimo as to my soul, my lord.
Hieronimo, my son, mistakes thee then?
My gracious father, believe me, so he doth. But what's a silly man, distracted mind, to think upon the murder of his son? Alas, how easy it is for him to err. but for his satisfaction and the world's, 'twere good, my lord, that Hieronimo and I were reconciled. If he misconstrue me...
Lorenzo, thou hast said, it shall be so. Go one of you and call Hieronimo.
And we'll just pause there. Had anyone else realised that Castile was Lorenzo's dad?
Yes.
Yeah, early on, but it's still not...
It took me a while to realise, because to begin with, I was like, who is he again? Oh, okay. Right. Yeah, it wasn't obvious.
No,
There is a
and-
clue in the cast list.
Yeah, but
okay.
for an audience, you know, that relationship, because Castile has said almost bugger all in this play to this point. And it sort of led us down a strange path, because the way he speaks at the beginning, you know, who's your sister? And I go, well, you would know. So that suggests how he's saying this is just sort of, you know, you do know who you are and where you are in this court. You do know what this court is like, don't you? Because I'm hearing really bad rumours, and can we sort this out? It's actually really interesting. It's very late in the day. I really like this little scene. But it's interesting it comes in here. Thoughts?
Well,
Yes.
Go Liz first.
Go on. Okay.
Then Helen.
But there are two things that struck me. One of which negates what I said yesterday about Hieronimo holding back from giving vent to his suspicions because maybe he wouldn't be believed, whereas Castile says the common love and kindness, that if Hieronimo did say something, you get the feeling that people would really listen to him. And so that really does make you wonder why he is holding back, why he's held back so far now, the reason for that. And the other thing was, you get the feeling that the father doesn't really completely trust Lorenzo, which I think is interesting. Yeah.
Well, he probably knows him too well. Helen.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, well, that's not far from what I was going to say, but I'm interested that what he's saying is that you can't control Facebook. I mean, Lorenzo, fundamentally, he's saying, look, who on earth can control the what gets said?
Yes, and I love the way that phrasing has a weird modern resonance with the vulgar liberal of their tongues. I mean, it sounds like, you know, the fake news, man, liberal media. I know that's an unfair reading, but that just sort of prickles in an interesting way. Any additional thoughts? Been starting a lot, but
I think the one thing is you could actually read Castile's speech in two different ways. One, he's trying to calm Lorenzo down and tell him to make peace with Hieronimo, but some bits of it could almost be read of, look, Hieronimo's going to cause trouble. Why don't you make him disappear?
Yeah, there is an interesting question about what is actually happening here, and I think that's a really good question. I don't think I've got a handle on that.
And I'm just wondering whether Lorenzo ought to appear with one of the comedian masks with a very long nose.
I mean, the sense I got was that Castile is saying, I sincerely hope that you haven't done anything to embarrass me. And if you have, I sincerely hope that you can cover it up.
That feels like an old hand at the game of court, isn't it? You know,
Yeah.
You're doing quite well, son, but possibly not well enough.
But he's seen him and he says, I've seen you. You have been busy keeping Hieronimo back from the king with your supplication. So his eyes are everywhere. He's been watching his son. So he's not feeling 100% confident at the moment.
Okay, so enter unto them now, having called for, asking for a servant to call for Hieronimo. Instead, we get the happy couple. Enter Balthazar and Belimperia.
Come, Belimperia, Balthazar's content, my sorrow's ease and sovereign of my bliss. Sith Hen have ordained thee to be mine, disperse those clouds and melancholy looks, and clear them up with those thy sun-bright eyes, wherein my hope, and heaven's fair beauty lies.
My looks, my lord, are fitting for my love, which new begun can show no brighter yet.
You kindled flames should burn as morning sun.
But not too fast, lest heat and all be done. I see my lord, my father.
Truce, my love. I'll go salute him.
Welcome, Balthazar. Welcome, brave prince, the pledge of Castile's peace. And welcome, Belimperia. How now, girl? Why comest thou sadly to salute me thus? Content thyself, for I am satisfied. It is not now as when Andrea lived. We have forgotten and forgiven that. And thou art graced with a happier love. But Balthazar, here comes Hieronimo. I'll have a word with him.
Enter Hieronimo and a servant.
And where's the Duke?
Yonder.
Even so. What new device have they devised, Trow? Pocas palabras, mild as the lamb. Is't I will be revenged? No, I am not the man.
Welcome, Hieronimo.
Welcome, Hieronimo.
Welcome, Hieronimo.
My lords, I thank you for Horatio.
Hieronimo, the reason that I sent to speak with you is this.
What? So short? Then I'll be gone. I thank you for it.
Nay, stay, Hieronimo. Go call him son.
Hieronimo, my father craves a word with you.
With me, sir? Why, my lord, I thought you had done.
No? Would he had.
Hieronimo, I hear you find yourself aggrieved at my son, because you have not access unto the king, and say 'tis he that intercepts your suits.
Why, is not this a miserable thing, my lord?
Hieronimo, I hope you have no cause, and would be loath that one of your deserts should once have reason to suspect my son, considering how I think of you myself.
Your son, Lorenzo? Whom, my noble lord? The hope of Spain, mine honourable friend. Grant me the combat of them if they dare.
Draws out his sword.
I'll meet him face to face to tell me so. These be the scandalous reports of such as love not me and hate my lord too much. Should I suspect Lorenzo would prevent or cross my suit that loved my son so well? My lord, I am ashamed it should be said.
Hieronimo, I never gave you cause.
My lord, I know you did not.
There, then pause, and for the satisfaction of the world, Hieronimo, frequent my homely house, the Duke of Castile, Cyprian's ancient seat, and when thou wilt, use me, my son, and it. But here, before Prince Balthazar and me, embrace each other, and be perfect friends.
I marry, my lord, and shall. Friends, quoth he, see, I'll be friends with you all, especially with you, my lovely lord. For divers causes it is fit for us that we be friends. The world's suspicious, and men may think what we imagine not.
Why, this is friendly done, Hieronimo.
And that I hope. Old grudges are forgot.
What else? It were a shame it should not be so.
Come on, Hieronimo, at my request. Let us entreat your company today.
Exeunt everyone except for Hieronimo.
Your lordship's to command. Ha, keep your way. Chi mi fa più carezze che non suole, tradito mi ha, tradia mi vuole.
And scene ends. So Hieronimo leaping into Italian there. So someone who's pretending to be my friend is in fact my deadly enemy. Of which everyone's pretending in this scene, aren't they? I love the barbershop quartet of welcome, welcome, welcome. Because it's just, he's pretending that he doesn't hate them. They're pretending that they're trying to pretend that everything's okay with him. Apart from, I think, Balthazar, who I think genuinely hasn't got a clue what's going on. You know, why this is friendly done, Hieronimo. I think that's genuine. I don't think he knows what the game is. I think he's
clueless.
Just lost. Thoughts about this scene?
Worse,
I love this.
I think there's also a question of how much does Castile know or suspect.
I think he's really managing this now. I think he's got the measure of everyone, and he's just quietly like, let's all pretend we're friends and let's get through the next few days. That seems to be where I've got it. I'm placing him.
I would agree with you on that, but I'm not sure that he is aware of Lorenzo's, more than complicity in the offing of Horatio.
No, I don't think he's aware at all, but I think he has deep suspicions that Lorenzo has not behaved himself as his son and heir ought to.
Agreed.
Yeah. And I think, yes, I think there are limits to what he knows.
Yeah.
I think that's fair.
And he's offering Hieronimo some timeshare.
Yeah.
I got this wonderful villa. You really, really must use it.
Yeah, and you know, I think the that sort of that it feels like a sort of a mobster thing at the end here, isn't it? You know, that sort of thing. You expect them to be kissing each other on the cheeks and everyone's being very openly gregarious, and it's also wonderfully false. I just love Hieronimo drawing his sword. I will kill anyone who suggests that Lorenzo is a bad person. I just think that's fascinating.
What do you think when he says, Castile says, Hieronimo, the reason that I sent to speak with you is this? Because that's quite funny. When Hieronimo says, what, so short? Does he just not give him the chance to continue? Or
it's a good question.
Is he referring to Horatio?
Yeah, it's structured so that it logically would Hieronimo just jump straight in, but it could be that he pushes his son forward and then nothing is said.
Yes, embarrassed silence.
Yeah.
I thought it was like the Mississippi is a very long word. How do you spell it?
Oh yeah.
The answer to which is, you know, so it was that sort of this.
Yeah.
You know. This is sad, and so he goes.
Yeah. So yes, is this? Yeah. This is it. Oh right, okay. Yeah. That makes sense. I think there's room in production to make a decision on that. I don't think we have to be too firm. And the Spanish, there is some Spanish. We've got some Spanish in this scene.
Yeah,
pocas palabras.
Yes, a few words. Be shush.
Yes. Yeah.
Hieronimo, don't give the game away. Let them do the talking. He's a cunning. He's growing in cunning as this goes, which is interesting.
How mad is he at this point?
Oh, he's livid.
Fair enough.
I could think of a simile, but I get gonged out.
Yes. Yes, please don't. No, I think there is a point that you can be mad, but you can also be
contained.
Yeah, he's furious. He is holding on to himself, I think. I think it doesn't mean it's not overperformed to some degree. This, he's got his plan. I don't think he's performing this very convincingly. I don't think anyone believes him. But he's giving the form. But that is almost it for the act, because it's that time you've been waiting for. Yes, finally the return of Andrea and revenge. As we, you remember that plot device we had? It's we haven't seen it in a while, so the audiences might be a bit surprised if they pop back up again. So enter Andrea. And presumably, an asleep revenge. So a revenge, and we have some gentle snoring there.
Awake, Erythro, Cerberus, awake! Solicit Pluto, gentle Proserpine, to combat Acheron and Erebus, for ne'er by Styx and Phlegon in hell, or felled Sharon to the fiery lakes. Such fearful sights as poor Andrea sees. Revenge, awake!
Yeah, awake, for why?
Awake, revenge, for thou art ill advised to sleep. Awake! What them art warned to watch.
Content thyself, and do not trouble me.
Awake, revenge, if love, as love have had, have yet the power or prevalence in hell. Hieronimo with Lorenzo is joined in league, and intercepts our passage to revenge. Awake, revenge, or we are woe begone.
Thus worldlings ground what they have dreamed upon. Content thyself, Andrea. Though I sleep, yet is my mood soliciting their souls. Suffice it thee that poor Hieronimo cannot forget his son Horatio, nor dies revenge, although he sleep a while, for in unquiet quietness is feigned, and slumbering is a common worldly while. Behold, Andrea, for an instance, how revenge hath slept, and then imagine thou what 'tis to be subject to destiny.
Enter a dumb show.
Awake, revenge, reveal this mystery.
Lo, the two first the nuptial torches bore, as brightly burning as the midday's sun. But after them doth Hymen hie as fast, clothed in sable and a saffron robe, and blows them out, and quencheth them with blood, as discontent that things continue so.
Suffices me, thy meaning's understood, and thanks to thee and those infernal powers that will not tolerate a lover's woe. Rest thee, for I will sit to see the rest.
Then argue not, for thou hast thy request.
Oh, such a fascinating little scenette here.
Weird.
We've got a dumb show. Revenge is doing his best Hieronimo impression by presenting and then explaining the dumb show to Andrea. But also, it's almost like Andrea is doing to the Revenge what he might be doing to the audience, which is, wake up, remember the point of what's happening here. And it's a bit meta. I quite like that. That's really nice. Thoughts?
I rather feel that Horatio ought to have joined them.
Yeah.
Oh, that's true, yes.
Yeah, that would be nice.
Should all the dead people be slowly stacked around, silently joining in?
It could be a way of staging it. Of having a gallery at the back, and as people are topped, they move to the bleachers at the back.
It's been done in other plays. I said it's been done in other plays.
It has. I don't think there's, unfortunately, quite enough bodies to do that productively with. But I like the idea that Horatio comes in with popcorn. They sent him out for snacks. So what's going on with this dumb show? It was a Revenge. You were explaining it. What's going on with that?
I have no idea.
No, neither do I.
As I read it, I'm like, what is going on? So, anyone?
I mean, it's almost.
Sorry.
It's almost as if what you're going to get is the dumb show is going to be a sort of rapid, visual-only précis of what's coming up in Act 4.
It's reading from what I think it makes sense. So Hymen, who's the god of marriage, is wearing black and essentially snuffs out the light from the scene. So we're approaching a marriage now, and darkness will fall across it. I think that's sort of the logic. Please shoot me down if I'm wrong there. Quenching them with blood. So it's going to be a red wedding coming. I think it's not a spoiler to say that. I think, it's telling us explicitly what's coming next. Okay. I think the next, we stopped and started quite a lot. The next scene runs through quite solidly. So I think we'll actually just let this one have its head and pause at the end unless something very, very interesting jumps out at me. Because this is quite an intimate little exchange. There are a few textual questions here in the last scene with Andrea. There's at least one potential break in the text, which you skirted over perfectly well. There's a little bit potentially lost here with what there might be an additional with what in that speech that is lost. But otherwise, it's all fairly there. So, Belimperia enters with Hieronimo.
Is this the love thou bearest, Horatio? Is this the kindness that thou counterfeitest? Are these the fruits of thine incessant tears? Hieronimo, are these thy passions, thy protestations, and thy deep laments that thou were wont to weary men withal? Oh, unkind father! Oh, deceitful world! With what excuses canst thou show thyself from this dishonour and the hate of men? Thus to neglect the loss and life of him who both my letters and thine own belief assures thee to be causeless slaughtered. Hieronimo, for shame, Hieronimo, be not a history to after times of such ingratitude unto thy son. Unhappy mothers of such children then, but monstrous fathers to forget so soon the death of those whom they with care and cost have tendered so, thus careless should be lost. Myself, a stranger in respect of thee, so loved his life, as still I wish their deaths. Nor shall his death be unrevenged by me, although I bear it out for fashion's sake. For here I swear, in sight of heaven and earth, shouldst thou neglect the love thou shouldst retain, and give it over, and devise no more, myself should send their hateful souls to hell that wrought his downfall with extremest death.
But may it be that Belimperia vows such revenge as she hath deigned to say? Why, then I see that heaven applies our drift, and all the saints do sit soliciting for vengeance on those cursed murderers. Madam, 'tis true, and now I find it so. I found a letter written in your name, and in that letter how Horatio died. Pardon, oh pardon, Belimperia, my fear and care in not believing it. Nor think I thoughtless think upon a mean to let his death be unrevenged at full. And here I vow, so you but give consent, and will conceal my resolution, I will ere long determine of their deaths, that causeless thus have murdered my son.
Hieronimo, I will consent, conceal, and aught that may affect far thine avail, join with thee to revenge Horatio's death.
On then, and whatsoever I devise, let me entreat you, grace my practices, for why the plot's already in mine head. Here they are.
And as the revengers assemble, enter Balthazar and Lorenzo.
How now, Hieronimo? What, courting Belimperia?
Ay, my lord, such courting as I promise you she hath my heart, but you, my lord, have hers.
But now, Hieronimo, or never, we are to entreat your help.
My help? Why, my good lords, assure yourselves of me, for you have given me cause. I, by my faith, have you.
It pleased you, at the entertainment of the ambassador, to grace the king so much as with a show. Now, were your study so well furnished as for the passing of the first night's sport to entertain my father with the like, or any such like pleasing motion, assure yourself it would content them well.
Is this all?
Aye, this is all.
Why, then I'll fit you. Say no more. When I was young, I gave my mind and plied myself to fruitless poetry, which though it profit the professor naught, yet is it passing pleasing to the world.
And how for that?
Marry, my good lord, thus, and yet methinks you are too quick with us. When in Toledo there I studied, it was my chance to write a tragedy. See here, my lords.
And he shows them a book.
Which, long forgot, I found this other day. Now would your lordships favour me so much as but to grace me with your acting it. I mean each one of you to play a part, assure you it will prove most passing strange and wondrous plausible to that assembly.
What? Would you have us play a tragedy?
Why, Nero thought it no disparagement, and kings and emperors have taken delight to make experience of their wits in plays.
Nay, be not angry, good Hieronimo. The prince but asked a question.
In faith, Hieronimo, and you be in earnest, I'll make one.
And I another.
Now, my good lord, could you entreat your sister Belimperia to make one? For what's the play without a woman in it?
Little entreaty shall serve me, Hieronimo, for I must needs be employed in your play.
Why, this is well. I tell you, lordings, it was determined to have been acted by gentlemen and scholars too, such as could tell what to speak.
And now it shall be played by princes and courtiers, such as can tell how to speak. If, as it is our country manner, you will but let us know the argument.
That shall I roundly. The Chronicles of Spain record this written of a knight of Rhodes. He was betrothed and wedded at the length to one Peseda, an Italian dame whose beauty ravished all that her beheld, especially the soul of Solomon, who at the marriage was the chiefest guest. By sundry means sought Solomon to win Peseda's love, and could not gain the same. Then gan he break his passions to a friend, one of his bashaws, whom he held full dear. Her had this bashaw long solicited, and saw she was not otherwise to be won, but by her husband's death, this knight of Rhodes, whom presently by treachery he slew. She, stirred with an exceeding hate, therefore, as cause of this slew Solomon, and to escape the bashaw's tyranny, did stab herself. And this the tragedy.
Oh, excellent!
But say, Hieronimo, what then became of him that was the bashaw?
Marry thus, moved with remorse of his misdeeds, ran to a mountain top and hung himself.
But which of us is to perform that part?
Oh, that will I, my lords, make no doubt of it. I'll play the murderer, I warrant you, for I already have conceited that.
And what shall I?
Great Solomon, the Turkish emperor.
And I?
Erastus, the knight of Rhodes.
And I?
Peseda, chaste and resolute. And here, my lords, are several abstracts drawn for each of you to note your parts and act it as occasions offered you. You must provide a Turkish cap, a black mustachio and a falchion.
And gives the paper to Balthazar.
You with a cross.
Gives another to Lorenzo.
And madam, you must attire yourself.
Giveth Belimperia another.
Like Phoebe, Flora, or the huntress, which to your discretion shall seem best. And as for me, my lords, I'll look to one, and with the ransom that the Viceroy sent, so furnish and perform this tragedy, as all the world shall say, Hieronimo was liberal in gracing of it so.
Hieronimo, methinks a comedy were better.
A comedy? Fie. Comedies are fit for common use, common wits. But to present a kingly troop withal, give me a stately written tragedy. Tragedia cotonata, fitting kings, containing matter and not common things. My lords, all this must be performed as fitting for the first night's revelling. The Italian tragedians were so sharp of wit that in 1 hour's meditation they would perform anything in action.
And well it may, for I have seen the like in Paris, amongst the French tragedians.
In Paris, mass, and well remembered. There's one thing more that rests for us to do.
What's that, Hieronimo? Forget not anything.
Each one of us must act his part in unknown languages, that it may breed the more variety. As you, my lord, in Latin, I in Greek, you in Italian, and for because I know that Belimperia hath practised the French, in courtly French shall all her phrases be.
You mean to try my cunning then, Hieronimo?
But
But this will be mere confusion, and hardly shall we all be understood.
It must be so. For the conclusion shall prove the invention, and all was good. And I myself, in an oration, and with a strange and wondrous show besides, that I will have there behind a curtain, assure yourself, shall make the matter known, and all shall be concluded in one scene. For there's no pleasure taken in tediousness.
How like you this?
Why, thus, my lord, we must resolve to soothe his humours up.
On then, Hieronimo. Farewell till soon.
You'll ply this gear?
I warrant you.
And everyone exits except for Hieronimo.
Why so? Now shall I see the fall of Babylon, wrought by the heavens in this confusion. And if the world like not this tragedy, hard is the hap of old Hieronimo.
Oh, what a fabulous scene that was. So much going on. Let's just start at the beginning of the scene with the back and forth between Belimperia and Hieronimo. One thing that really interested me there, apart from the fact that they're sharing information, they're comparing notes, but when Belimperia is talking about unkind father, it's not just at Hieronimo, is it? It's not just that you aren't caring enough about your father, but, you know, her own father is now quite complicit in her lack of agency, that's everything that's happened, even if he's not directly responsible. I'm wondering if there's an element to that, to what she's saying, or that's that for the actor. So let's thoughts about that very opening bit with Belimperia and Hieronimo.
It's funny because it kind of, it's a repeat of the previous scene in a way, between the ghost and revenge. The ghost is trying to get the revenge to do something, and this is the same thing, Belimperia with Hieronimo. It's like a little mirror scene.
Yeah, really like that.
Me.
Yeah. We've had mirroring elsewhere. That's a mirroring from the real world and the underworld as well. That's really nice. Because it is a really emotive and really strong scene. I mean, I think those characters are really going at each other in certain ways and pulling different stops.
It's the first scene we've had in a long time as well, where everybody's telling the truth.
Oh, good point. Yeah.
Which presages quite well for what then immediately follows.
Yeah.
And it sets up that almost telepathic communication that must happen between Hieronimo and Belimperia later, when, you know, he says, I've got a plan. I've had a plan since Act 3, Scene 13, because that's when we first see him with the book. And I said earlier the book was possibly Seneca. It might actually be his own Thomas Kyd's own version of Solomon and Persida. So it could actually be product placement.
Wow.
Because that's one of the other plays, one of the few other plays we have of Thomas Kyd that survives. And we'll come into that in a moment. So then we have the entrance of the... we've got the protagonist on, and then the antagonists come on, and they're all so lovely and nice because he's going to do the entertainment. That'll keep him busy. Do an entertainment.
What could possibly go wrong?
I'm very much enjoying Balthazar, though. He.
Oh God, yeah.
I love him.
He's so clueless.
He really is. He's great fun to play, I have to say.
What's interesting is the way Hieronimo speaks to him, because he takes him up a bit short. He gets angry, and he allows himself to do that, and he actually does it later on as well. So he really, he doesn't actually hide his feelings when he's talking to him.
He's not very good at it. He's trying, but his performance is obviously leaking everywhere. But they get so enthusiastic about doing the play.
Yes, recognise the plot now.
And, you know, this is such good dramatic irony of, you know, he's taking them through it piece by piece. And the more enthusiastic they are, whether it's just simply to keep him busy or whether they actually genuinely like the idea of being in a play, the worse it gets. And it's fab.
It reminded me slightly of the casting of Lovers' Vows in Mansfield Park.
Yes. Yes, absolutely. And what's his name? He's like, oh yes, I have 30 speeches and I have to wear a cape. Mariah's intended. What's his name?
Yes, I forget. But yes, he has the Balthazar role.
He's Balthazar. He absolutely is. Oh God, what's his name? Oh, it'll come to me. Never mind. Yeah, yes. But that is a really brilliant analogy. Yeah. Sorry. Yeah. We all went a bit Jane Austen there. Sorry.
That's fine. Do we know if Austen was a great fan of the Spanish tragedy? It doesn't feel like it's on a reading list, but I don't know.
She did actually. She did actually read an awful lot of plays, and in fact, there were several. I don't know if there was a copy of the Spanish tragedy, but there were a lot of early English play scripts and dramas in her brother's library at Chawton House. Sorry, that you're going off into my area of geekery here now. So it's
great.
But so she might have done actually, and she does make reference in various novels to plays and dramas that her characters have supposedly read, but she's actually read and enjoyed. So you never know, she might have done. Yeah.
And Hieronimo's obvious delight of I'll play the murderer.
Exactly.
Belimperia, you want to be in this play too,
yes.
don't
Oh,
you?
damn right I do.
Oh, yes.
So yeah, it's going to be quite a production. I think it's going to be quite a production. And again, following on from Andrea and Revenge, that dumb show. We should all be seeing where there's no pretense that where this is going is anywhere but carnage.
I just wondered also
William,
yeah. Sorry about the Italian tragedians were of so sharp of wit that in 1 hour's meditation they could perform anything in action. Is that about memorizing the part? Because I wondered. I love this. Like the play within the play is actually a play within a play, with the characters playing the play within the play. And then handing out the roles, also giving them the paper, and then saying the Italian tragedians could do it in an hour, and then in Paris the same thing.
So off you go and learn your lines.
So off you go and learn
your lines. They're very, very quick. I mean, I did wonder about that and about the the French tragedians and these various traditions, of which I'm not seeing anything particularly helpful in the notes I've got about me here, but I think that's a really interesting question, and of which I don't know the answer really. But yeah, it's a wonderful point.
And how much French tragedy was there at that time anyway?
Not a vast amount, but there was stuff. There was stuff, and more of a crossover than you'd probably has been acknowledged.
What date is this? 1592?
Yeah,
late 1580s, early 1590s.
Yeah.
Right?
So Racine was around then or not? I'm trying to think of the tragedies.
Not quite yet.
Later, right?
Yeah.
Most French drama comes from the 1620s, 30s upwards.
Yeah.
Or the stuff we care about anyway.
Or the stuff we care about, yeah. They care about.
But if you look at what Balthazar says, and now it shall be played by princes and courtiers, that speech. Yeah. What it is they're saying, well, what he's saying is, we are courtiers and princes. We can speak extempore. We know how to speak. We have all the good words, great words, beautiful words. You just have to let us know the argument.
Yeah.
We don't have to memorize this. We can just step forward and speak as we normally would.
Whereas there's a cunning plan, however, that will alter that, I'm sure. Before we head into these final acts, we have a couple of shortish scenes occurring before the act itself. So, Act 4, Scene 2, enter Isabella. We haven't seen her for a while. Enter Isabella with a weapon.
Tell me no more. O monstrous homicides, since neither piety nor pity moves the king to justice or compassion, I will revenge myself upon this place where thus they murdered my beloved son.
And she cuts down the arbour.
Down with these branches and these loathsome boughs, of this unfortunate and fatal pine. Down with them, Isabella, rent them up, and burn the roots from whence the rest is sprung. I will not leave a root, a stalk, a tree, a bough, a branch, a blossom, nor a leaf. No, not an herb within this garden plot, a cursed complot of my misery. Fruitless forever may this garden be, barren the earth, and blissless whosoe'er imagines not to keep it unmanured. An eastern wind commixed with noisome airs shall blast the plants and the young saplings. The earth with serpents shall be pestered, and passengers, for fear to be infect, shall stand aloof, and looking at it tell, there murdered, died the son of Isabel. Aye, here he died, and here I him embrace. See where his ghost solicits with his wounds revenge on her that should revenge his death. Hieronimo, make haste to see thy son, for sorrow and despair hath sighted me to hear Horatio plead with Rhadamanth. Make haste, Hieronimo, to hold excuse thy negligence in pursuit of their deaths, whose hateful wrath bereaved him of his breath. Oh nay, thou dost delay their deaths, forgivest the murderers of thy noble son, and none but I bestir me to no end. And as I curse the tree from further fruit, so shall my womb be cursed for his sake. And with this weapon will I wound the breast, the hapless breast that gave Horatio suck.
And she stabs herself, and the scene ends. So presumably she exits bleeding, or someone carries her off, or there's some action there. Isabella has popped in and out of this action with sudden bursts, and has had quite an impact, despite the fact that she's not really floating around the action. There aren't many scenes where you think she might be in the background. She seems very much not part of the court scene. She's at home. Rhadamanth gets his fourth mention. I think it's 4 times lucky so far. There's references that connect to Babylon again, images from Babylon, and which is following on from Hieronimo's themes. So is this connected? How much does Isabella know about what's coming? Does she know anything, or is she just wishing for certain things? Thoughts about that speech?
I'm wondering if, well, when you first were reading it, I thought then that it was a metaphor for what she was going to do to the court, you know, that there was going to be no one left alive, that she was going to murder everybody and their offspring and leave them dead. But then when she killed herself, that kind of, oh well, I presume she's killed herself, that kind of undid the size of it for me. Sorry, I'm not articulating that very well at all.
I feel exactly the same way, Pamela, because all the way through this play, I felt like she's been getting bigger, well, not bigger and bigger, but more and more energy, like contained, and and then she kind of has that lunatic moment where she sort of explodes, and I thought she was just gonna wipe the floor with everybody. Honestly, I did. I thought that's the way it was heading, and then at the beginning of this scene, you think, oh,
here we
hang
go.
on to your seats, this is where she goes. And then she does go, but it's an act of self-destruction. She kills herself, and I'm actually, this sounds a bit sick, but I'm weirdly disappointed.
Yeah.
I was expecting her to break out and just, I have to say, the destruction of the
arbor.
the arbor, I can imagine that's amazing,
beautiful.
actually.
Mm.
I can imagine that could be staged in such an amazing way. But I did kind of feel a bit let down by Kyd there, actually, because I feel I wanted her to do more before. I can imagine her, stabbing herself, but maybe just do a bit more first.
Yes, the big change of mood is at "Ah, nay, thou dost delay their deaths."
Yeah.
Because you've got exactly what you were saying up to that point.
Yeah.
And then she says she has been taken in by Hieronimo's duplicity. And she says, you've given up.
And you've forgiven them.
Yeah. My life is at an end.
Yeah. And it's like, wow. It's really sad. And there's a lot of pathos, but I'm also a bit disappointed.
I mean, it's that thing, hoping that pleading with Horatio would have, Hieronimo should himself possibly be the one killing himself, because then he can go and talk to Rhadamanth, this great celestial judge, to call on this to pass. Did I misunderstand that? That sort of seemed to be what that was saying in that bit. And if he's not going to do it, maybe she should damn well do it. So maybe it's not actually giving in. It's actually she's going to go direct to the source.
Well, what would be great would be if she turned up now with Andrea and revenge, and just was like, what are you doing? Come on, do something.
I think the whole family should be there at the end, around the television set, shouldn't they?
Actually, this speech is more difficult than it at first looks. There were a couple of places where I actually got completely lost in the sense. I completely lost the sense. I just kept going.
It's interesting, this symbolic destruction of the court, as well as the arbor itself, as well as the place that murdered her. That's almost like this is what she wants to do to all these people.
It's great.
And that all this stuff, not only is it going to be pulled down, it's going to be blasted by winds and never be seen again. It's going to be atomized. And
passengers, for fear to be infected, shall stand aloof. Social distancing.
Yes.
round the group.
I suppose it's quite not that I imagine Kyd intended it as this at all, but with hindsight, I suppose it's quite an interesting comment on the position of women at the time, because she has all this energy, she has all this anger, and she has this will to act, but of course she doesn't go to court, she's at home. Her sphere is purely the domestic one. She doesn't have the opportunity to go and start laying waste to the men who murdered her son. So maybe that's it, she destroys what she can, i.e. the arbor, and then she has to turn it inward because there's nowhere else to go, because she doesn't have that ability as a woman to stray outside her sphere.
So we move into another very short scene where the stage management aspect of things are going on, and one wonders if the destruction of the arbor and the clearing away of the arbor is then followed by Hieronimo tidying up as he sets the stage. And there's something quite twisted about this as a crossover here that I find fascinating, because the stage direction says in the beginning of the next scene, enter Hieronimo, he knocks up the curtain. So is that covering the arbor where the body could be laid? Does she sort of actually exit, or is she her body just covered up and then exits quietly during the scene that follows? So this is interesting. Enter to Hieronimo, the Duke of Castile.
How now, Hieronimo? Where's your fellows that you take all this pain?
Oh, sir, it is for the author's credit to look that all things may go well. But, good my lord, let me entreat your grace to give the king the copy of the play. This is the argument of what we show.
I will, Hieronimo.
One thing more, my good lord.
What's that?
Let me entreat your grace that when the train are passed into the gallery, you would vouchsafe to throw me down the key.
I will, Hieronimo.
Interesting. Exit Castile.
What? Are you ready, Balthazar? Bring a chair and a cushion for the king.
Enter Balthazar with a chair.
Well done, Balthazar. Hang up the title. Hang up the title. Arsenius Rhodes, what, is your beard on?
Half on, the other is in my hand.
Dispatch for shame. Are you so long?
Exit Balthazar.
Bethink thyself, Hieronimo. Recall thy wits. Recount thy former wrongs thou hast received by murder of thy son. And lastly, not least, how Isabel, once his mother and thy dearest wife, all woe begone for him, hath slain herself. Behoves thee then, Hieronimo, to be revenged. The plot is laid of dire revenge. On then, Hieronimo, pursue revenge, for nothing wants but acting of revenge.
Exit Hieronimo. I really wonder here if in a modern staging it would be logical that this is actually, this little thing that's coming up next is actually in the arbour, and that the body is literally behind the curtain. That, you know, because he's talking about her and as dying. I know that's probably not what was intended, that some time has passed and he's heard, but I'm just wondering if there's a weird that would be dramatically effective and becomes something like a blood sacrifice prior to the main event, and something slightly twisted and strange there. Poor Balthazar.
Well done.
But he really does talk to him like a child, doesn't he, there? I mean, that's following on from the,
I mean, a prince, and he sends him to fetch a chair.
Yes.
No.
And you can imagine him coming on with a chair with his beard half glued on. I mean, it's just...
Well, it's either that or he's already got a beard, but he's got his fake beard. That there's a very elaborate beard for the play, so he's already got a beard, and he's sort of going, well, yeah. Which one do you mean?
This is the one I can't take off.
Yes.
Oh, nice.
Oh, we laugh. Yeah, and it's this thing about Castile of, I mean, that little bit is partly, I think it's to help set up the next scene, but it's also about, give me the key so I can lock everybody in when they're in.
Yeah, definitely.
And, you know, again, that goes back to much earlier, you know, if we assume that Kyd has been raiding at this point the narrative of Amleth, then the idea of locking the royal court in a great hall prior to slaughtering everyone is a narrative thread that goes back to older stories as well. So there's that's a thought that just leapt out at me. Now we go into the final act, and I think it's important to point out that, as I say, not only has Kyd written a Solomon and Persida play himself, but also that the text that we're about to read has been translated by the printer. So the printer actually literally has a note in the play: "Gentlemen, this play, Hieronimo, in sundry languages, was thought good to be set down in English more largely for the easier understanding to every public reader." I think it's reasonably convincing that this should actually be in the original languages, and that it should be utterly bewildering. That you may disagree when we come to the end of it, but that this play should just be utter carnage dramatically, before we get to utter carnage dramatically. So that's an important thing, I think, to note here. So it's time to face the music. It's time to light the lights. It's time to get things started on the Spanish tragedy tonight. So, into the final act. Enter the Spanish king, Viceroy, the Duke of Castile, and their train.
Now, Viceroy, shall we see the tragedy of Soliman, the Turkish emperor, performed of pleasure by your son, the prince, my nephew, Don Lorenzo, and my niece?
Who? Belimperia?
I and Hieronimo, our marshal, at his request they deign to do it themselves. These be our pastimes in the court of Spain. Here, brother, you shall be the bookkeeper, This is the argument that they show.
And he giveth him a book, i.e. the sort of ceremonial programme. Gentlemen, it's a question of precisely whether this is supposed to be said out loud or whether this is just in the script for helpfulness for the reader. Gentlemen, this play of Hieronimo in sundry languages was thought... this is the bit I just read a minute ago. I apologise. This has been translated. This is the translation note that I just read. I apologise. I got this in out of order. Anyway, enter Balthazar as Suleiman, Belimperia as Persida, and Hieronimo as the Pasha.
For sure that Rhodes is ours, yield heavens the honour, and holy Muhammad our sacred prophet. And be thou graced with every excellence that Solomon can give all thou desire, but thy desert in conquering Rhodes is less than in preserving this fair Christian Persida, blissful lamp of excellence, whose eyes compel, like powerful adamant, the warlike heart of Solomon to wait.
Sorry. See, Viceroy, that is Balthazar, your son, that represents the Emperor Solomon. How well he acts his amorous passion.
Aye, Belimperia hath taught him that.
That's because his mind runs all on Belimperia.
Whatever joy earth yields, betide your majesty.
Earth yields no joy without Persida's love.
Let then Persida on your grace attend.
She shall not wait on me, but I on her. Drawn by the influence of her lights I yield. But let my friend the Rhodian knight come forth, Erasto dearer than my life to me, that he may see Persida my beloved.
Enter Lorenzo as Erasto.
Here comes Lorenzo. Look upon the plot and tell me, brother, what part plays he?
Ah, my Erasto, welcome to Persida.
Thrice happy is Erasto that thou liv'st. Rhodes' loss is nothing to Erasto's joy. Sith his Persida lives, his life survives.
Oh, but sure, here is love between Erasto and fair Persida, sovereign of my soul.
Remove Erasto, mighty Solomon, and then Persida will be quickly won.
Erasto is my friend, and while he lives, Persida never will remove her love.
Let not Erasto live to grieve great Solomon.
Dear is Erasto in our princely eye.
But if he be your rival, let him die.
Why, let him die, so love commandeth me, yet grieve I that Erasto should so die.
Erasto, Solomon saluteth thee, and lets thee wit by me his highest will, which is't thou shouldst be thus employed.
And he stabs him.
Ay me, Erasto, see, Solomon, Erasto slain.
Yet liveth Solomon to comfort thee. Fair queen of beauty, let not favour die, but with gracious eye behold his grief, that with Persida's beauty is increased, if by Persida his grief be not released.
Tyrant, desist soliciting vain suits. Relentless are mine ears to thy laments. As thy butcher is pitiless and base, which seized on my Erasto, harmless knight. Yet by thy power thou thinkest to command, and to thy power Persida doth obey. But were she able, thus she would revenge the treacheries on thee, ignoble prince.
And she stabs him.
And on herself she would be thus revenged.
And she stabs herself. Round of applause, everybody.
Well set. Old Marshal, this was bravely done.
But Belimperia plays Persida well.
Were this in earnest, Belimperia, it would be better to my son than so.
But now what follows for Hieronimo?
Marry, this follows for Hieronimo. Here break we off our sundry languages, and thus conclude I in our vulgar tongue. Haply you think, but bootless are your thoughts, that this is fabulously counterfeit, and that we do as all tragedians do, to die today for fashioning our scene, the death of Ajax or some Roman peer, and in a minute starting up again, revive to please tomorrow's audience. No, princes. No, I am Hieronimo, the hopeless father of a hapless son whose tongue is tuned to tell his latest tale, not to excuse gross errors in the play. I see. Your looks urge instance of these words. Behold the reason urging me to this.
And he shows his dead son.
See here my show. Look on this spectacle. Here lay my hope, and here my hope hath end. Here lay my heart, and here my heart was slain. Here lay my treasure lost. Here lay my bliss, and here my bliss bereft. But hope, heart, treasure, joy, and bliss all fled, failed, died, yea, all decayed with this. From forth these wounds came breath that gave me life. They murdered me that made these fatal marks. The cause was love, whence grew this mortal hate. The hate, Lorenzo and young Balthazar, the love my son to Belimperia. But night, the coverer of accursed crimes, with pitchy silence hushed these traitors' harms and lent them leave, for they had soughted leisure to take advantage in my garden plot upon my son, my dear Horatio. There, merciless, they butchered up my boy, in black dark night to pale, dim, cruel death. He shrieks. I heard, and yet methinks I hear his dismal outcry echo in the air. With soonest speed I hastened to the noise, where hanging on a tree I found my son, through girt with wounds and slaughtered, as you see. And grieved I, think you, at this spectacle? Speak, Portuguese, whose loss resembles mine. If thou can weep upon thy Balthazar, 'tis like I wailed for my Horatio. And you, my lord, whose reconciled son marched in a net and thought himself unseen, and rated me for my brain-sick lunacy, with God amend that mad Hieronimo. How can you brook our play's catastrophe? And here behold this bloody handkerchief, which at Horatio's death I weeping dipped within the river of his bleeding wounds. It as propitious sea I have reserved, and never hath it left my bloody heart, soliciting remembrance of my vow with these, oh, these accursed murderers, which now performed my heart is satisfied. And to this end the bashaw I became that might revenge me on Lorenzo's life, who therefore was appointed to the part, and was to represent the Knight of Rhodes, that I might kill him more conveniently. So, Viceroy, was this Balthazar thy son, that Solomon, which Belimperia in person of Persida murdered, solely appointed to that tragic part, that she might slay him that offended her. Poor Belimperia missed her part in this, for though the story says she should have died, yet I, of kindness and of care to her, did otherwise determine of her end. But love of him whom they did hate too much did urge her resolution to be such. And princes, now behold Hieronimo, author and actor in this tragedy, bearing his latest fortune in his fist. And will I, as resolute, conclude his part, and gentle, thus I end my play. Urge no more words. I have no more to say.
And he runs to hang himself. Lots of things there before we go into the very final straight. If we had time, I would actually suggest we all go back and we run the play within a play, with everyone just sort of doing Bill and Ben impressions, just to get that sense of confusion. We won't, but I really feel that would make a lot of sense, because of course what we have here is everyone going immediately, my God, I didn't know how good an actor Balthazar was. I mean, that death was fantastic.
Yeah.
And at that point, at what point does the audience go, oh, hang on. At what point during Hieronimo's speech does everyone go, oh, hang on, is this part of the play?
Yeah.
The creeping realization that some people might twig at slightly different times, and how that plays. It's and everyone's just stunned because they don't know what's real and what isn't. I think this is just a fascinating example, shall we say, of what may become a slightly more shop-worn series of dramatic conventions in tragedy. Thoughts from the room before we go into the end?
Yeah, I think what you were saying there about the audience, I think there will be some people in the audience who will be sort of suspecting what's going to happen just from that previous scene between Hieronimo and Belimperia. They're going to be like, oh, okay, you know, they're going to be expecting it, and so they'll perhaps realize that the stabbings are real, and then there will be other people who will just probably be laughing because it's just so crazy, and with all the different languages as well, they'll be just swept away with it. And then yes, that dawning realization at different times,
because we've got two audiences. We've got the audience on stage and the audience in the audience,
and the audience in the audience. It's I mean, it's a fantastic conceit, really. I mean, it's so clever, and like you say, it's the forerunner, isn't it, to sitting in front of the TV on Sunday evening watching an Agatha Christie, and you know, someone going, oh wow, it was him, when the murder was revealed, and the person sitting next to them going, yeah, I did actually work that out about half an hour ago.
I didn't say it out loud though.
Yeah,
but,
exactly.
I knew.
I knew. But it's like, yeah, this is where it begins, kind of. It's amazing, really.
They must start to ask themselves, when he says, no princes, no, I am Hieronimo. And then he says, I see your looks urge instance of these words. So I think at that point, they really are starting to think, hang on a minute, he's supposed to be the Bashaw or whatever it was.
But they're also used to him being a bit erratic,
yes,
so they don't know where this is precisely going.
It's true, and then no one knows about the death of Horatio either, apparently.
Yeah, it must be revolting by this point. He's been dead over a week.
Oh God.
Well, he certainly isn't sitting with Andrea and the popcorn.
No. Well, that's a good point. If he hasn't been given a proper burial, where is his soul? Question mark. So, yeah. Where's Hieronimo? Where's he been keeping the body?
I was just wondering that. Like, what? Yeah. Not in the arbour.
No.
Oh. And then he runs to hang himself, and everybody suddenly the spell is broken. The spell is broken. Any additional thoughts before we rattle into the final act?
I don't think anybody is going to worry about the time that Horatio's been dead and the disintegration of the corpse, because it has actually only been about an hour and a half.
Yeah, no, the difference between logic of the internal and external logics.
It's very hot in Spain.
Yes, it is. So during this bit where we're coming in, there is effectively an alternative version of what's coming up that could be used in performance, which was written later. We're sticking with the original as it stands. So Hieronimo's completed his massive speech. Well done, by the way, Liz, for that enormous chunk of text. Hieronimo, having said that this is the end of my play, I'm off to he runs away, and suddenly the action in the court starts up again.
Oh, hearken, Viceroy! Hold, Hieronimo! Brother, my nephew and thy son are slain.
We are betrayed. My Balthazar is slain. Break open the doors. Run. Save Hieronimo.
And they break in and they grab Hieronimo from wherever he'd run to.
Hieronimo, do but inform the king of these events. Upon mine honour, thou shalt have no harm.
Viceroy, I will not trust thee with my life, which I this day have offered to my son. Accursed wretch, why stayest thou him that was resolved to die?
Speak, traitor, damned bloody murderer, speak, for now I have thee. I will make thee speak. Why hast thou done this undeserving deed?
Why hast thou murdered my Balthazar?
Why hast thou butchered both my children thus?
Oh, good words. As dear to me was my Horatio, as yours, my lord, to you. My guiltless son was by Lorenzo slain, and by Lorenzo and that Balthazar, upon whose souls may heaven be yet avenged with greater far than these afflictions.
But who were thy confederates in this?
That was thy daughter Belimperia, for by her hand my Balthazar was slain. I saw her stab him.
Why speakst thou not?
What lesser liberty can kings afford than harmless silence? Then afford it me. Sufficeth I may not, nor I will not tell thee.
Fetch forth the torturers. Traitor as thou art, I'll make thee tell.
Oh, indeed, thou mayst torment me, as his wretched son hath done in murdering my Horatio. But never shalt thou force me to reveal the thing which I have vowed inviolate. And therefore, in despite of all thy threats, pleased with their deaths and eased with their revenge, first take my tongue, and afterwards my heart.
And Hieronimo bites out his own tongue.
O monstrous resolution of a wretch! See, Viceroy, he has bitten forth his tongue rather than to reveal what we required.
Yet he can write.
And in this he satisfies not. We will devise the extremest kind of death that ever was invented for a wretch.
Then he makes signs for a knife to mend his pen.
Oh, he would have a knife to mend his pen.
Here, and advise thee that thou write the truth.
Hieronimo, with a knife, stabs the Duke and himself.
Sorry, that stage direction's a line later in my script.
That's fine. It may dance around a bit.
Look to my brother, save Hieronimo.
I'm sorry. What age have ever heard such monstrous deeds? My brother and the whole succeeding hope that Spain expected after my decease. Go bear his body hence, that we may mourn the loss of our beloved brother's death, that he may be entombed. Whatever befall, I am the next, the nearest, last of all.
And thou, Don Pedro, do the like for us. Take up our hapless son, untimely slain. Set me with him, and he with woeful me, upon the mainmast of a ship unmanned, and let the wind and tide haul me along to Scylla's barking and untamed gulf, or to the loathsome pool of Acheron, to weep my want for my sweet Balthazar. Spain hath no refuge for Portugal.
The trumpets sound a dead march, the King of Spain mourning after his brother's body, and the Viceroy of Portugal burying the body of his son. So, happy end there. It's not over yet, of course, but nearly is. I'm sorry. Who would give him a knife to mend his?
Balthazar, if he was alive.
Yeah, Balthazar would have done it.
But in this case, Castile did it, I think.
Yeah. And is there a sort of actually he wants it? Does it's a case of who wants him still alive and who just wants him dead? I mean, is there an element of that, of just give him a knife, let him then die?
Well, does perhaps Castile want him to kill himself before he can dishonour his son and daughter anymore? Like, I know by this point he has already spilt the beans in terms of telling everyone about Lorenzo's involvement, but I mean, they do seem to want him to tell more and spell it out in detail. So maybe there's an element of Castile thinking, oh no, all the details don't need to come out.
He's protecting Belimperia in a way, her memory.
Yeah, as well.
Yeah,
both of them. He's just not expecting to get stabbed himself.
I think they're just in shock and not thinking sensibly.
I think we may be thinking too much about the action. It's but it's that thing about Lorenzo being the murderer of Andrea, because I thought there seems to be some contradiction there from some stuff we've had earlier, or are we getting the two plays crossed over? Because I thought it was Balthazar with others, but this explicitly says it's Lorenzo.
No, it is Balthazar. At the beginning of the play, at least. Yeah,
that's what I thought. I thought the beginning of this play stated that as well as the end of the last, or that his ruffians killed and he sort of took ownership of it. Because if Balthazar doesn't kill Andre, then poor bugger.
Well, no, he killed Horatio.
He was there.
Part of the gang that killed
He was
Horatio.
there.
He was part of that.
He was
But
there.
he never felt like he was an active participant in anything, did he?
But I don't think Lorenzo can have been part of the death of Andrea because they were in the same armies. At the time.
No, sorry, I've misread it. I apologise. Yeah, no, the guiltless son was by Lorenzo. Yeah, so it's Lorenzo is for Horatio and Balthazar for Andrea. So yes, they both get their dues. Yeah, sorry, that's me misreading it. Sorry.
I'm feeling a bit sad for Castile because, quite frankly, he's done his best throughout, and I thought he was going to survive.
He's a very last-minute death, isn't he?
Yeah.
But he has forced his daughter into a marriage she doesn't want.
Well, that was not.
I know that was.
It would not have been an issue at the time, would it?
No, true.
I don't think he knew the full story. I mean, he's just arranging an advantageous match. It's not quite the same thing. Is this justice? Let's just ask that question. Any thoughts, William?
I'm just thinking about Castile still. I mean, we've never really concentrated on him until the end of the play. And the fact is that Lorenzo could be just a chip off the old block. Who knows what filthy things Castile has done in the past. And Lorenzo is like father, like son. So I don't know the extent of his guilt in this particular situation. And wow, I mean, that biting of the tongue and then give him a knife to sharpen his is just outrageous. That's all I have to say.
It all happens very quickly.
I'm shocked. It really happened. I mean, you're biting your tongue out, you spit it out, and it's like, oh yeah, what? That's just ridiculous.
I mean, we are assuming that the two stage directions, then he makes signs for a knife and he with a knife, he in question is the king.
No. It's obviously
Hieronimo.
It's definitely
Hieronimo.
Yeah. But it's because you were saying, we don't know what Castile get up to because the play doesn't tell us. I mean, he says about 6 lines, prior to the end of Act 3. I mean, he's just there. He doesn't do anything.
In a way, he set off the whole thing, though, didn't he? Because he didn't approve of Andrea. So there was all at the beginning, wasn't there? He says to Belimperia, it's okay. It's not like at the time with Andrea. That's all forgotten now. If he'd accepted Andrea for Belimperia at the very beginning, then none of this would have happened.
Except that Andrea would still be dead.
Yeah.
True.
I mean,
can I also put in a word for Balthazar here? Because having played him now, I feel like I need to stick up for him because, he is responsible either directly or indirectly for the death of Andrea.
In a war.
Exactly. It's in a war. It's in a war. So, and they have all that. Well, I mean, if you include the previous play, they have all that stuff on the battlefield where they're like, oh, come at me. Oh, you come at me. Oh, we're brothers in arms kind of thing. There's all that kind of
slightly homoerotic as well.
Yeah, it is. Yes, you think they're going to rip off their armor and run into each other's arms at one point. So it's like, but there is this kind of honor between them, that, they are enemies on the battlefield, but they could be friends in other circumstances. And so I think he gets treated a bit harshly, really, because I know he is there. I know he's there for the death of Horatio, but he is kind of a bit like just along. He doesn't really plot it. He's just kind of there as a bit of a tag on. And I'm feeling quite sad about him. Really.
Is it justice? Is it justice?
Exactly.
What he did.
Yeah.
Well, he was a guest in someone else's house as well. He kind of just goes along with it. I'm here. They're giving me my meals. I guess I can't really put up too much of a fuss. I don't know.
And he's under house arrest effectively as well.
Yes.
So I don't think it's justice, but hey, what do other people think?
Well, I think we should see how Andrea feels, because we are in the we haven't finished the play. We still have another scene to go. So let's see how his conversation with Revenge closes the action. So there's sort of dead trumpets carrying of bodies, and yet here in the underworld, the Elysian Fields, is this action.
Aye, now my hopes have end in their effects, when blood and sorrow finish my desires. Horatio murdered in his father's bower, wild Cerberin by Pedragano slain, false Pedragano hanged by quaint device, fair Isabella by herself misdone, Prince Balthazar by Belimperia stabbed, the Duke of Castile and his wicked son both done to death by old Hieronimo, my Belimperia fallen, as Dido fell, the good Hieronimo slain by himself. Aye, these were spectacles to please my soul. Now will I beg at lovely Proserpine, that by the virtue of her princely doom I may consort my friends in pleasing sort, and on my foes work just and sharp revenge. I'll lead my friend Horatio through those fields where never dying wars are still inured. I'll lead fair Isabella to that train where pity weeps but never feeleth pain. I'll lead my Belimperia to those joys that vestal virgins and fair queens possess. I'll lead Hieronimo where Orpheus plays, adding sweet pleasure to eternal days. But say, Revenge, for thou must help, or none, against the rest, how shall my hate be shown?
This hand shall hale them down to deepest hell, where none but furies, bugs, and tortures dwell.
Then, sweet Revenge, do this at my request. Let me be judge, and doom them to unrest. Let loose poor Tydeus from the vulture's gripe, and let Don Cyprian supply his room. Place Don Lorenzo on Ixion's wheel, and let the lover's endless pains surcease. Juno forgets old wrath, and grants him ease. Hang Balthazar about Chimera's neck, and let him there bewail his bloody love, repining at our joys that are above. Let Cerberine go and roll the fatal stone, and take from Sisyphus his endless moan. False Pedragano for his treachery, let him be dragged through Boilean Acheron, and there live, dying still in endless flames, blaspheming gods and all their holy names.
Then haste we down to meet thy friends and foes, to place thy friends in ease, the rest in woes. For here, though death hath end their misery, I'll there begin their endless tragedy.
And I think I'm just going to say here that a bit of a Twin Peaks reference out there for everyone. That it seems that Andrea is definitely eating of the gum-and-bosia, pain and suffering. Is this the Andrea we had at the beginning?
Doesn't appear to be.
No, it's turned into real.
Yeah.
Well, I think death has altered him.
Yeah. Is it that he's
does
just
not become him?
No. It's just my hopes have end in their effects. Was this what he hoped for? I mean, it may have been, but it seems. I mean, it's never-ending torment for these people. Really? So yeah, it's this thing of is Andrea really Andrea anymore at the end? And is revenge feeding on his pleasure at their sufferings? I'm going a bit sci-fi fantasy on this. There's something very weird, very dark.
Has he been infected by hanging out with Revenge for too long? Perhaps. Yeah.
He is offering good things for the good, but it's just wow. Thoughts?
Well, it certainly is a warning, isn't it, to think about one's conduct.
I've just been reading through the Act 1, Scene 1, his opening speech, and certainly the mood and tone is very different.
I have a question. I don't know if this is a bit the wrong time to mention it, but you said earlier there was an alternative end or alternative scene.
Alternative to Hieronimo's biting his tongue out sequence.
Oh, okay.
He says some stuff prior to biting his tongue out, so that in the later version, he actually bites his tongue out twice.
Oh, right.
Impressive.
Nice.
In a way, it's printed in 1602. Effectively, it's I don't know if it's in the same edition or whether if you try and conflate the two, they don't match. Because he bites out his tongue and then has a speech.
That's a clever trick.
Yeah.
But it ends in the same way, does it? It's
This chorus is exactly the same. It's just it's so much darker in many ways. It's so unrelenting, and of course, it's not Christian. Let's be clear here. This is not an ending that necessarily the audience think is going to happen to them. This is the warnings of an irreligious world. There is no, is there justice in can you have tragedy in a Christian universe? Well, not really. You only have justice. Because God is fair.
I don't think there is actually anything that's explicitly Christian in the whole piece.
No, I think it's deliberately not. It's deliberately not.
Well, living with Marlowe would do that to you, wouldn't it, really?
Yeah. He'd definitely want revenge on Marlowe for the... Marlowe wants revenge on him, actually, doesn't it? Because he dobs Marlowe
he shops
right and proper.
He shops Marlowe.
Yeah.
Well, he had been tortured first.
Yeah. To be fair, I think anyone would.
Yeah.
So, thoughts about the play in general? As we're about to go into extra time, I've got a few additional nuggets I'll throw out in a moment. But now we've come to the end of this journey, or almost the end of this journey. Where are we at with this play? What would we do with this play?
Struggle.
Would you? Sarah disagrees, I can tell.
I stand by what I say yesterday. I would love to direct this play because I think there's so much in it that you could have fun with, and so much that you could pull out and delve into. And the fact that the ending is, a bit problematic, maybe. That kind of is all just part of the challenge, isn't it? I think.
I think it's a great ending. I just think it's incredibly dark.
It's a great ending. It's just not what you're expecting for what's come before necessarily. So there's a lot to chew on in here, and I
no pun intended.
No pun intended. Sorry about that.
Yeah, Pamela.
I was just going to say, I know I haven't been here for all of it, but there's a lot more humor in it than I was anticipating. I thought it was going to be really dark, and I know bits of it are, but there's pleasant, levity in there too.
He uses dramatic irony constantly. I mean, it's ironic humor in a way that we don't necessarily associate too often with some early modern stuff. I mean, he's steeped in it, absolutely steeped in it. Pamela, as an actor, I'm sure you can be scoping out parts that you like.
Of course,
I assume.
I'd like Balthazar, please.
I like Balthazar. I definitely see that or Lorenzo are the two ones I'm going. I could say those. They'd be fun. Give it 10, 20 years, Hieronimo. But for the moment, while I've still got hair,
you can completely imagine that whoever plays Balthazar, depending on what they decide to do with the part and how they're directed, you can imagine that actor would steal the show. Actually.
It's a real question, isn't it? How far you go with that? I mean, we've gone down a very specific route, I think, and it may be unfair actually. With more depth of rehearsal time, actually we find more darkness as opposed to just this sort of. We presented him, and I think it's unfair slightly as a bit of a simple fool, and maybe he isn't. Maybe that's just a front. Other thoughts?
I'm just thinking, with this length of script, roughly how long would this take to stage?
It's orbiting somewhere 2.5 hours, I would say. I think that's fair. I would assume you'd probably make some cuts. You wouldn't necessarily do it all the way through. I mean, you could. It depends on how fast you play it. When you get to a script of this length, then it could stretch out to 3 if you really got self-indulgent. But you know, there's more than enough going on here.
It seems a lot longer than that.
Yeah.
I mean, I've been here every day since Monday. Or admittedly, we've done 2 plays in that time, but it seems a tremendous distance, and it seems to have been going on forever. I mean, I'm knocked sideways by the weight of it. I suppose it's the weight rather than the length.
Yeah. There's a lot of depth here. But no, in terms of actual reading of text, we've done a lot of discussion, and we've had time to do a lot of discussion because it's shorter than the 2 Tamburlaines we did last week. In terms of words, the 2 plays together, we're doing less text. I mean, it's still long. I say, 2.5 hours is no duck egg. I could see it getting it down to 2 if you tried really hard and made quite a few cuts. But I wouldn't want to do it any less than that because you start killing the player, I think.
I don't know how this word count compares with, to some extent, the obvious analogy to it from He Who Must Not Be Named.
Oh, well, he tends to write even longer than this.
Which runs for something like 3, doesn't it? The close analogy.
The close analogy is more like 4.
Or longer.
You've got to
much
remember,
longer.
that some playwrights wrote considerably longer plays than others. So there are plays that are, say, only 16,000 words, which is comfortably under 2 hours if you do it at pace, but are starting to orbit towards 2 hours. This over 20,000 words, then you're getting to 2.5. But it is entirely dependent, once the script is over about 10,000 words, how quickly you pace it changes the length. So last night we did Massacre at Paris, which is about 11,000 words. It took forever to do because the pacing in the room was not fast. There was a lot of long speeches or bits which were done quite slowly because we're working through the text. Whereas in real life we'd go much faster. I mean, Liz, you were doing those speeches at a reasonable lick. In real life, I'd imagine some of them go much quicker, but some of them would get much slower. Just to briefly talk about Hieronimo, I think it's important to talk about the reputation it had, and I just want to read this. This story is a little apocryphal. This may be because it's anti-theatrical, but I think it's important to remember that some people got really into Hieronimo. So there was allegedly a theatre-going personage. Her daily task till death entered the stage and play his part, whom she entertains with such unpreparedness as her extreme act presents objects of infinite unhappiness. And so she would literally, when she died, she called out the name Hieronimo. She was so obsessed with the part and the play that she essentially lived it in life, and that she would go to the theatre and cry out. And on her deathbed, the story gets even more elaborated in a later version, where she actually thanks the doctor on her deathbed by saying, "Thanks, good Horatio, take this for thy pains." So there are anti-theatrical stories around at the time about how obsessive people's reactions to Hieronimo and his grief could be, and there were super fans potentially. How historically accurate those stories are, of course, because they're written by anti-theatrical people. But I thought I'd throw that one in because he's a great part, isn't he?
Oh, yeah.
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah.
I also feel slightly sorry for Pedringano a little. He's getting eternal damnation for pretty. He's Well, I suppose he did murder someone. Oh well.
Yeah.
He murdered
did,
at least
he
two
did.
people that we know of. So sympathy for him, I think he's possibly slightly overdoing it.
Yeah, possibly.
You know,
Sorry, yeah, Alan.
the fact that you know, he could probably turn around and say, "Well, I was only doing what I was told, Gov."
Mm-hmm. But it's, you know, what could he have done in his position in society?
Well, that's
Society.
it. Yeah.
It's society.
He could have not murdered people.
Yeah.
You say that. You say that.
But if he had said no already, what's his name? Lorenzo would have thought of him as an untrustworthy, unworthy servant.
He'd probably be dead himself.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, it's self-defense.
I've
Self-defense.
told you, so I have to kill you. Yeah, exactly.
Okay, final thoughts in the room as we end this journey. Any last words on the Spanish tragedy, or for that matter, Hieronimo at this long distance? Helen, have you got anything for us?
Not really, no. I can just say I've remembered it's Mr. Rushworth.
Yeah, I remembered too, but I didn't want to say. But yeah, it's Mr. Rushworth.
That's one to follow up people on the internet. Anything from Liz, Pamela, William? Anything else at this stage?
No, it's been great to discover both of the plays. Really, very interesting and very funny in parts.
Yes, funny. Darkness and light.
Darkness and light. Chiaroscuro.
Right. I will therefore say thank you to all the readers for their wonderful performances this week. All the readers this week as well as today. Thank you for taking it. This has been a delightful journey again. Yes, last week was Tamburlaine. That was a delight in a different way. And once again, I feel this process has delivered much goodness. Next week, we're looking at another two-part play, Antonio and Melida and Antonio's Revenge. First half, which could be said is a comedy, and the second half could be said is a tragedy. But then, who knows? And it may be related in certain ways to this play, or additions that we have not done. So there may be a little more Spanish tragedy next week for all those out there. All that remains for me is to say I've been Robert Crighton, and thank you all for watching. Goodbye.
Goodbye.
Bye.
Bye.